It was 4 years ago that Claudia Medina's life was thrown into a nightmare. Members of Mexico's armed forces entered her home in the state of Veracruz, tortured her, and forced her to confess to being a member of an organized crime group. Although the charges against her were dropped, she still awaits justice and an apology from the authorities.
There still hasn't been an explanation. No one has come forward and said, you know what, we confused you with someone else, or sorry, it wasn't me.
Yet the case of Medina is not isolated. In April, a video went viral showing federal police and members of the military graphically torturing a woman in the violence-stricken state of Guerrero. The media fallout prompted the first ever public apology from Mexico's chief of the armed forces, Salvador Cienfuegos.
In name of all of us who are members of this great national institution, I offer a heartfelt apology to all of those offended or hurt in society by this unadmissible events.
Yet, Cienfuegos has staunchly opposed that independent experts investigating the case of the 43 disappeared Ayotzinapa students interview military personnel for their potential role in the crime. In the final report by the investigators in the case, evidence of torture used against 17 suspects was found, especially those suspects who confessed to murdering and incinerating the remains of the students.
The fruit from the poison tree, all that comes from the poison tree. Here, in this case, the confession under torture is invalid.
And while the authorities claim that all three cases are isolated, rare events, international rights defenders and ranking officials of the United Nations have repeatedly expressed the opposite.
Torture is generalized here in Mexico. I tried to select with care the term because I did not want to say deliberate, nor systematic, nor massive.
National human rights defenders working on the issue argue that the UN officials' remarks are even watered down. Luis Tapia of the Centro Pro Human Rights Center say that since 2004, more than 57,000 formal complaints have been filed against the authorities for arbitrary arrests, which often lead to torture, forced disappearances, or extrajudicial murders.
So that number needs to be contrasted with the number of existing audited sentences. From what we know, and according to the information from the Attorney General's office and state-level prosecutors, there have only been 15 convictions of the crime of torture since 2004.
Although Mexico's Senate recently approved a national law against torture, rights defenders say a mixture of impunity and counter-legislation will almost guarantee that the current scenario of widespread torture will remain the norm for the time to come. Clayton Cantelesur, Mexico City.